My sister always leaves her kids with me to look after, even though I'm busy at work, so I told my brother, and now they're getting divorced. I'm 23 and have an older brother, Mike, 28. About 4 years ago, he married Emma, 27, and they have a set of 3-year-old twins. I have a good relationship with my brother, but my relationship with my sister is just okay. When Mike introduced her to me, I tried to get to know her better, but she just wasn't interested in getting to know me. Even after they got married and had a child, she still didn't care about our family. I don't mind, but she shouldn't expect us to be at her beck and call all the time. That wouldn't be fair, but for some reason she does expect me to help. When she first had the baby, she would call me and ask me to buy groceries for her because she was stuck at home with the baby and Mike was too tired after work to do anything. The first few times I agreed out of consideration for Mike, but then she started adding more errands, so I had to refuse. Recently, she started dropping off their twins at my house every day and asking me to look after them while she went about her business. I did it for the first 3 days, but on the 4th day I told her I needed to work and I couldn't, but she didn't think that was a problem and said it was just practice for when I had my own kids and I'd be fine. Plus I'm at home anyway, so it's no big deal. Yes, I do work from home, that's true, but it's still work, and I don't see why that should mean I can look after your kids while I'm still obviously working. It's called working from home for a reason. It's a standard 9-to-5 job, and while I'm more comfortable working remotely, I still have to work as hard as someone who works in an office, so I really don't have time to look after 2 kids while I work. I told her that on the first day, but she told me she had to visit her sick mother. My brother doesn't like nannies, so he doesn't trust anyone with the kids but me. So she had no choice. She promised to only be gone for a few hours at most, so I agreed, but she was gone for almost 6 hours, and when she finally came back, I told her that this was a favor I was doing her, but next time she should either find a nanny or have my brother work from home and take care of the kids instead, because I can't do both. Then she started lecturing me, saying that I'm their aunt after all, and that I should offer to take care of them when they need help, because family is supposed to help each other out. She told me that her mother was very sick, that her brother was currently out of state and would not be home for another 2 days. So she needed my help taking care of the kids because only I, Mike, would agree to do it. She also said that her brother was working hard for a promotion, so it would be wrong to disturb him at such a time, so this arrangement could only be kept between us. In the end, she convinced me and I agreed. For the next 2 days, I took care of the kids while doing my work. Although I was very tired, Emma still took her time, came back to pick up the kids. On the 4th day, I was finally able to have a day to myself because Emma's brother was coming home that day, so she didn't have to take care of her mother, because her brother would take care of her. But in the end, she still showed up on time, dropped off the kids, and said she needed to run an errand and would be right back. I know that right away means at least 2 hours, and I wanted to argue with her, but she was in such a hurry that she didn't even listen. Instead, she just walked in, put the kids on the sofa, and hurried back to the car without waiting for me to say anything. I was so angry that I sent her a text saying that it wasn't easy for someone who worked 50 hours a week to take on the additional task of being a free nanny, and that she could at least be honest with me again. She started telling me that I owed it to her and to Mike because we were family, and at that point I almost broke down, so I took a few screenshots of the text and sent them to my brother along with pictures of his kids in my house. I also sent him a detailed explanation of what had happened over the past few days and how his wife was using me as a daycare service, which had to stop. I also had to work and couldn't deal with this every day. Don't get me wrong, I love my nephews and think they're perfect, but kids are always a hassle, and after all, I'm not their mother and I didn't agree to look after them, so it seemed a bit unfair to leave the kids with me and then just go. I texted him all about it, complaining about Emma and her behavior. About 15 minutes later, Mike texted me back to say he was sorry and that he was on his way to pick up the kids. At first I felt a little guilty because Emma had told me beforehand that he was under a lot of stress at work, which must have added to his stress, so I tried to tell him that I could take care of them today, but he insisted on coming to pick them up. He showed up looking very frustrated and didn't say much. He thanked me again for my patience and understanding of the whole situation and apologized for the inconvenience caused. Before leaving, I felt terrible then, and still do because I saw the disappointment on his face, which I assumed was because of me and my refusal to care for my nephews. But 3 days later, I learned from my parents that Mike had filed for divorce with Emma and asked for full custody, while Emma would only get visitation rights. My parents didn't know the real reason either, because they learned it from Emma's parents, whom they called to tell them very frustrated what was going on between their children. I immediately called Mike and asked him what was going on, because he had always had a soft spot for Emma, so it was very strange. I went to his house to talk to him, because Emma had left the day he brought the baby home from my house. They had a huge fight that night. Emma came home, which ultimately led to her leaving the house, and he filed for divorce the next morning. Apparently, this had been going on for a while, and she would take the baby to some unsuspecting relative and go on with her life. Earlier, Emma's third cousin had lived a few blocks away, but she had moved away. He only found out about it after she had moved, because Emma never told him. It was only because her cousin had made a joke that Emma now had to find another babysitter. The babysitter, because Mike found out what she had done, and they had a big fight about it because Mike had never agreed to it and Emma was stubborn, so the least she could do was keep her word or at least send them to a daycare center or find a suitable babysitter to look after them if she wanted to go out. But she couldn't just leave the children with someone else, especially someone she didn't know very well. She didn't think it was time to send the children to daycare yet, and a full-time nanny wasn't really reliable either, but a certain distant cousin she had only met a couple of times would be a good choice. He explained to her that she couldn't have it both ways, that she either stayed home with the baby or chose one of the other two options he had mentioned earlier. She wasn't ready for the other two options he had mentioned earlier, so they agreed that she would stay home with the baby for the next few weeks, and if she needed to go out, she could send him home and he would take care of the baby himself. But as we know, things didn't turn out as we thought they would. A few weeks later, she dumped the baby on me and went out with friends. Yes, her mother was not sick at all, and one of her friends was getting married, so she spent every day with her, while I took care of her baby. I was shocked and angry when I realized that she had just taken advantage of my willingness to help my brother. I almost wanted to call and tell her what a terrible person she was, but somehow I held back. Mike told me that he broke down when I called to tell him that she had dropped the baby off at my place, because she had promised to do so this time, and they were arguing about it, and she told him it was okay because he had said he didn't want someone he didn't know to take care of their baby. But he knew me and trusted me, so she didn't see what the big deal was. The poor guy had to lower his voice so she could realize that just because I'm his sister doesn't mean I can take care of his kids, and that I'm willing to take care of his kids, especially since I also have a full-time job at the same time, and her cousin doesn't have a full-time job. She's a full-time wife and doesn't have any kids of her own, so she can take care of our kids, but she's not even close to Mike or Emma, so I really don't know why she would entrust the kids to her during their last argument. Mike had said things like she had no intention of being a mother at all, and Emma had retorted that, really, she didn't want to be a mother. She told him that if she had known that having children meant completely ending any fun, then she would never have wanted them. Then she stormed out. This was enough for Mike to file for divorce and full custody, as she had clearly stated that she no longer wanted to be a mother. I was really shocked because although I always knew Emma was never serious about life and I thought marriage and children would change that and she would become more responsible, that obviously hadn't happened and my brother and their children had unfortunately been caught up in it. He was really torn up about the divorce, and on top of that, she wouldn't even give up custody of the children, and although she had said she hadn't responded to the divorce papers yet, she was really, really angry and his in-laws were harassing him all the time. I comforted him for a while and told him everything would be fine. When I got home, my parents called me again and asked if I had found out anything, because Mike hadn't answered their calls. I told them that they would have to talk to Mike themselves, because I wasn't sure if I should share his reasons, but they kept badgering me, so I finally told them just to get off my back. My parents' attitude took a 180-degree turn, and they started blaming me for causing this situation, because they thought if I had just stayed at home quietly taking care of the kids that day instead of informing Mike, maybe this wouldn't have happened at all. I couldn't believe they were blaming me for their divorce, instead of Emma's carelessness. I had a huge fight with my parents over this, but they just wouldn't listen to my explanation. They think I should have thought things through before involving my brother, and they want me to apologize to Emma and her family for causing them so much trouble and making them try to stop the divorce, as if it was Emma's decision in the first place. I know why EX is doing this, because my parents are close friends of Emma's parents and don't want to lose that friendship, because Emma's parents are rich and powerful people and my parents want to keep them as friends. Ever since Mike first brought Emma home, they've been excited because if all goes well, it will eventually mean getting invited to parties with all those pretentious people. But the fact that they care so much about their image and their relationships with other people, even at the expense of their own children, makes me uncomfortable and has made me lose all respect for them immediately. I hung up the phone and haven't spoken to them since, but they keep pestering me and accusing me via text messages. I'm even afraid to block them, because even though I don't like them as people anymore, I still love my parents. I can't even tell Mike about any of this, even though he's the one I usually go to in situations like this, but I don't think that's a good idea considering everything he's going through right now. So here I am, Ida, complaining to my brother, because my S keeps pushing me to take care of her kids even though I work 50 hours a week. Update. A week has passed and Mike has really gotten into the legal proceedings. Emma has decided not to oppose the divorce, but is still unwilling to give up custody of the children, which I am still unwilling to give up. This still makes no sense to me, because I hardly think she has changed her mind about motherhood overnight. As for Emma, I think this may explain her behavior. She is the only daughter of parents who are incredibly wealthy, and unfortunately, she grew up to be a real spoiled brat. I'm not saying that all children of rich parents are brats, but she certainly is. My parents. We'd known each other since we were kids because our mothers went to the same university, and they'd met up at alumni reunions from time to time. They were friends, but not particularly close, until things changed when Mike started dating Emma. She was one of those people who refused to grow up, and even as an adult and a mother, she still acted as irresponsibly as a high school girl. She just decided not to grow up, and that's probably why I could never like her. I'll never know what Mike saw in her, but at least he wisely left, because it's clear she doesn't put her children first, as she claims. That's a dangerous mindset for a parent to have. He was lucky that her cousin is a normal, stable person and didn't harm the children. Despite my busy work schedule, I still take care of them. Otherwise, she might just dump them on someone she barely knows just because she's not ready to take care of them and a nanny. To be honest, nothing she said or did made any sense to me. I just thought she was a stupid woman. I'm pretty sure the only reason she fought for custody of the children was because her parents insisted on it, and they probably still want to see their grandchildren. As for my own parents, they haven't spoken to me either, because I made it clear a few days ago that I would never apologize to Emma or her parents, because I don't think I've done anything wrong, and if they cut me off for helping my brother protect his children from a careless mother, then I think that's enough to show that my parents are more out of touch than I am. Today, I finally spoke to my brother, and although we stayed in touch in the meantime, it was just a hurried chat and an update on the custody battle. So far, he's doing well, which makes me happy, but now Emma's parents are starting to bother me. I'm pretty sure my own parents gave them my contact information and address, which is why Emma's mother made a surprise visit last night. She told me that I was currently the only person who could convince my brother to agree to joint custody, and that I was even willing to consider her request because she seemed so serious and desperate. But then she said something so superficial that I couldn't take her seriously anymore. She told me that she, her husband and Emma were all suffering terribly, that the divorce itself was bad enough, but that losing custody of their child would be the final straw for Emma. I expected her to say that it would be a heavy blow to her as a mother, but she went on to tell me that they were already afraid of becoming the talk of the town if Emma ended up losing custody of their child, which was why I needed to step in and take action to prevent that from happening. I was shocked to discover that these people were more worried about people talking about them than about their own flesh and blood. This really went too far for me. I told her that I would talk to my brother about it, but obviously I didn't intend to do so. I just said that to get her to leave and leave me alone. This morning, I went to Mike's house and told him what my mother-in-law had said to me last night. He didn't seem surprised, just sad, because even now, it seems Emma is more concerned about what her friends will think if she loses custody. I think it's clear why she's fighting so hard for joint custody now. It's not because she's suddenly discovered how much she loves being a mother or anything like that. It's just because she doesn't want people to think she's an irresponsible or unstable woman, someone unfit to be a mother, someone who's lost her child's custody. It was just her last-ditch effort to salvage her reputation, and besides, it was at least frustrating. So far, the twins have been living with Mike, and sometimes he asks me to help out with their care, and I'm happy to do so whenever I can. If I'm not available, he'll ask a trusted friend to help out with their care, because he hasn't had time to find a daycare or a nanny yet. Once custody arrangements are finalized, I think he will go for it. I hope he gets full custody, and if we're lucky, it could happen soon because honestly, Emma is really not cut out to be a mother. She wasn't ready to be a mother when she had them, and she still isn't. Maybe one day she will be, but it seems unlikely in the short term, at least not while she's living with her shallow parents. Wait. After all, shallow apples don't fall far from shallow trees, but given my current relationship with my parents, I can say that they don't speak to me, and I don't think they ever will. They have contacted Mike several times, but he has not responded to them. And because of the way they treat me, he has always been very cold and businesslike with them. A few days ago, he even refused to let them visit the toddler and gave them an ultimatum. Either apologize to me and make amends, or pretend they don't have a child at all and live a drama-free life. They had a fight, and now my parents won't speak to either of us. It no longer affects either of us, as we are busy with our own lives. They have time and again proven that their loyalty lies not with their own child, but with Emma's parents. So they made their choice, and they had a fight, and now neither of my parents will speak to us. It no longer affects either of us. We are busy with our own lives. They have proven time and again that their loyalty lies not with their own child but with Emma's parents. So they have made their choice and we have accepted their choice. I won't try to change their minds, because it won't make any difference when Emma finally loses custody of her children and her parents cut ties with mine. Maybe then they'll realize they've screwed up, but it'll be too late. For now, they can continue to believe they think they're right. Update 3. Hello everyone. It's been almost 7 months since the last update. As of today, Mike has finally been granted full custody of the twins. He finally won the legal battle 2 months ago, and the divorce became official last week. He's doing really well now, finally free of Emma. I'm happy for him. As I predicted, the parents cut ties with mine as soon as they lost custody, but at least mine were dignified enough not to immediately run back to us, but to resort to more cunning and manipulative tactics, which is typical. We found out because my aunt called to tell me that my mother was very upset that I and Emma's parents not returning her calls. We knew that her parents not returning her calls was just an attempt by my mother to make us feel sorry for her and reconnect with her, but if my parents want us back in their lives, they're going to have to do it the right way.